6 people. 1 farmhouse. A brutal crime so disturbing that even seasoned investigators, who have seen their fair share of gruesome scenes, were left horrified. No witnesses, no clear motive. And the most chilling part: the killer might have been living in the house for days before they struck. But why would someone do that? How did they manage to vanish without a trace? This is the terrifying and unsolved mystery of the Hinterkaifeck Murders, a case that remains as chilling and perplexing today as it was over a century ago. What really happened in that remote, isolated farmhouse? And why has this case remained so frustratingly unsolved for so long? Join us as we delve into every spine-tingling detail of this horrifying mystery, trying to uncover the truth that has eluded investigators for years. Some crimes fade into the annals of history, slowly forgotten over time, while others only grow darker, more chilling, and more mysterious as the years pass. The Hinterkaifeck Murders are undoubtedly one of the most haunting and unsettling unsolved crimes in history. A quiet, peaceful farmhouse in rural Germany, just 70 kilometers north of Munich, was suddenly transformed into a grisly crime scene, one that has left even the most experienced detectives scratching their heads for more than a century. The brutality of the killings, the eerie and cryptic warnings that preceded the murders, and the fact that the killer appeared to have lived in the house for several days afterward have made this case one of the strangest and most baffling cold cases ever recorded. Who could have done such a thing, and why? Today, we'll uncover the haunting details, examine the strange clues that surfaced over the years, and dive into the unsettling theories that have circulated about this terrifying crime. As we dig deeper into the mystery, you'll soon understand why this case continues to send chills down the spines of true crime enthusiasts and casual observers alike. The year was 1922, a time when the world was still reeling from the aftermath of World War I, and life in rural Germany was still largely untouched by the rapid advances of the modern world. The place? A small, isolated farmstead called Hinterkaifeck, located about 70 kilometers north of Munich. This farm was home to 6 people: 63-year-old Andreas Gruber, his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, and her 2 young children, Cecilia and Joseph. The family also employed a maid, Maria Baumgartner, who had just arrived at the farm, eager to start her first day of work. She would never see another sunrise. On March 31st, the day appeared to be like any other. It was a peaceful, ordinary day in the quiet countryside. The family went about their business as usual, working in the fields and tending to their livestock. But by the next morning, an eerie silence descended over the farm. Neighbors noticed something odd. No one from the Gruber family had been seen. The farm animals, typically active and noisy, were restless and unsettled. Yet the family was nowhere to be found. Mail that had been delivered went uncollected, and the usual sounds of farm work, chickens clucking, cows mooing, and tools clinking, ceased completely. Something was horribly wrong. Days passed, but there was still no sign of the Grubers. Concerned, a group of villagers decided to investigate. When they arrived at the farm on April 4th, what they found was straight out of a nightmare. In the barn, they discovered 4 lifeless bodies, all brutally murdered with a pickaxe. Inside the house, 2 more bodies lay dead: the maid Maria Baumgartner and the youngest child, Joseph. The scene was gruesome. Blood soaked the floors of the barn and the house. The bodies in the barn had been stacked on top of each other, partially covered with hay, while Maria and Joseph were found lying lifeless in their beds. It was an execution-style massacre, and the more investigators uncovered, the stranger and more twisted the case became. Police arrived at the crime scene, and what they found only deepened the mystery surrounding the murders. The killings were brutally methodical. Each victim had been struck in the head multiple times with a pickaxe. The blows appeared to be precise and calculated, as if the killer knew exactly what they were doing. There were no signs of forced entry into the farmhouse, and no valuables had been stolen. In fact, it appeared that nothing had been disturbed, save for the horrific murder scene itself. And perhaps the most unsettling detail of all was the discovery that someone had been living at the farm after the murders had taken place. The livestock had been fed, and food had been consumed from the kitchen. Neighbors reported seeing smoke rising from the farmhouse chimney days after the murders. This chilling fact suggested that the killer, or killers, had stayed in the house, living among the dead for days. The notion of a murderer calmly going about their daily life while surrounded by the victim's remains is terrifying and surreal. But in this case, it was all too real. The killer, or killers, had been living among the bodies, performing mundane tasks like cooking meals, feeding the animals, and maintaining the home, all while the blood of the victims still stained the floors. As investigators combed through the property, they discovered something even more disturbing. Andreas Gruber had been reporting strange occurrences in the days leading up to the murders. He told neighbors about footprints he had found in the snow, leading from the nearby woods to his home, but none leading back. He had heard footsteps in the attic, found an unfamiliar newspaper on his property, and had even reported that his house keys had gone missing. But when he searched the farm, he found nothing. He dismissed these eerie occurrences, perhaps attributing them to his own growing paranoia. But just days later, his entire family would be slaughtered in the most brutal and unimaginable way. Investigators interviewed people from the surrounding area, but no one had seen or heard anything out of the ordinary. There were no clear suspects, no apparent motive, and no one who seemed to know who could have committed such a horrific crime. As the case grew colder, the few clues that had surfaced led nowhere. Time passed, and the mystery of Hinterkaifeck remained unsolved. Even modern forensic techniques have failed to uncover the identity of the killer. This case, it seems, is one that will never be resolved. At least, not with the information we have today. Over the years, countless theories have emerged attempting to explain who could have committed such a gruesome and puzzling crime. Investigators, journalists, and amateur sleuths have all speculated about the identity of the murderer and the motive behind the killings. One of the most popular theories centers around a former maid who had worked at the farm just 6 months before the murders. She had claimed that the house was haunted, speaking of strange noises coming from the attic, the feeling of being watched, and a general sense of dread that seemed to permeate the property. Could she have sensed something sinister that the Grubers ignored? Could an unknown intruder have been living in the house for months, carefully biding their time before finally striking? Another theory involves Carl Gabriel, Victoria's deceased husband. He was reported to have died in World War I, but some people believed he may have faked his own death and returned to the farm, possibly seeking revenge on his wife and her family. Some even claimed to have seen him alive after the war. But if Carl had survived, why would he have killed his own family in such a brutal and senseless manner? And why would he have waited until 1922 to act? There's also the theory of a jealous lover, specifically Victoria's neighbor, Lorenz Schlittenbauer. Rumors swirled that Victoria had been involved in an affair with Schlittenbauer, and some believed that in a fit of jealous rage, he may have murdered the entire family. However, his behavior during the investigation, which seemed inconsistent and evasive, only raised more questions. Did Schlittenbauer know more than he let on? Could he have been involved, or was he just a red herring? Lastly, there's the possibility that the killer was a random drifter or even a serial killer who happened upon the isolated farmhouse, finding it to be the perfect opportunity for a brutal crime. But if this was the case, why would the killer have stayed in the house for several days after the murders? This eerie question remains unanswered. Several bizarre and cryptic clues have kept investigators baffled for over a century. One of the most puzzling is the missing murder weapon. The pickaxe used to kill the family was nowhere to be found at the crime scene. It wasn't until a year later, when investigators searched the attic, that they discovered the pickaxe hidden among the rafters. Had the killer hidden it there before fleeing the scene? Or was this some sort of symbolic message? The location of the weapon remains one of the case's greatest mysteries. Another unsettling clue was the condition of young Cecilia's body. Unlike the others, she had not died instantly. Her body showed signs that she had torn out her own hair, possibly in a fit of terror, before succumbing to her injuries. What horrors had she witnessed in the moments before her death? And then there are the strange reports of footsteps in the attic, which were heard by Andreas Gruber and other witnesses before the murders. Could the killer have been hiding in the house for days, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? If so, what were they waiting for? These questions remain unanswered, but they continue to haunt the investigation. More than 100 years have passed since the Hinterkaifeck murders, and yet the mystery remains as unsolved as ever. No one has ever been charged with the crime. No clear suspects have emerged, and the motive remains a puzzle. The case still haunts investigators and true crime enthusiasts alike. Why did the killer stay in the house for days after the murders? Was the family targeted because of a personal vendetta, or was this simply the work of a complete stranger? Could there be more to the strange noises Andreas reported hearing in the days leading up to the murders? Was this a crime of passion, or was it something far darker and more calculated? Even with the help of modern forensic science, the case remains cold. Some believe that the key to solving the mystery lies in long-forgotten clues, or even in the attic itself. Perhaps the truth is locked away in the darkest corners of the farmhouse, still waiting to be discovered. The Hinterkaifeck murders stand as one of the most chilling and unsolved mysteries of all time. With its eerie atmosphere, disturbing clues, and endless theories, it's a case that continues to captivate the imagination and inspire fear. One thing is certain: until the truth is finally revealed, this crime will haunt us all. The Hinterkaifeck murders are a chilling and perplexing mystery that has baffled investigators, theorists, and true crime enthusiasts for over a century. Despite extensive investigation, countless theories, and numerous potential suspects, the truth behind the grisly killings remains as elusive as ever. The fact that the killer, or killers, appeared to have lived in the house for days after the murders, and that no clear motive or suspect has ever been identified, only adds to the eerie and unsettling nature of this case. For those who have followed the story, the unanswered questions persist, taunting anyone who dares to search for the truth. Was the crime the work of a random drifter, a vengeful family member, or someone with deep ties to the Gruber family? What was the killer's motive, and why were they so determined to remain undetected? Even with all the strange clues, eerie occurrences, and modern investigative methods, we are still left in the dark. As we reflect on this haunting case, we are reminded that some mysteries are simply too dark, too complex, and too chilling to ever be fully understood. The Hinterkaifeck murders stand as a testament to the sinister side of human nature, and to the reality that some questions, no matter how hard we search for answers, may never be fully answered. So, what do you think? Do you believe the truth will ever come to light, or will the secrets of Hinterkaifeck remain buried in the past? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep the discussion going.